Welcome to Spaghetti Launchers, a world-building podcast. We throw spaghetti at the wall, and it's up to you what sticks. I'm Kyle.
I'm Ethan. Today we will be discussing big-ass trees, a famous trope in many speculative fictional stories. Kyle, what's your favorite big-ass tree?
You can't see the motion he did for that, but it was glorious. My favorite big-ass tree, I don't know that I have a specific favorite big-ass tree. My mind immediately goes to in Legend of Vox Machina when they
Whitestone.
Whitestone.
The sun tree.
Yeah, the sun tree.
Yeah.
That's a cool big-ass tree. Lothlorien?
Lothlorien, yeah. Big.
It's kind of a big...
Is it? I don't know.
It's
I never
just
read
a
the books.
forest.
I think it's just a forest.
What's your favorite big-ass tree?
Ooh. Honest to God, man, my favorite will be the Tree of Might from Dragon Ball Z. Because... Mostly because it flips the trope, right? Typical big-ass trees, it's like Yggdrasil, the world's tree. They're these big, magical, sacred things that keep people alive. And there's the big tree in Avatar, the blue people Avatar, and it's their home, and it's all these things. And then you have Dragon Ball Z coming in. They're like, nope, here's this big-ass tree that is so big, it is going to kill your world because it needs that many resources.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I loved that. It still sticks in my head. And I went through coming up with ideas for today's episode. I reverse engineered the Tree of Might 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Without even realizing it. Because it's so embedded in my brain.
And that is a cool way to handle the trope. We talked about a big ass tree in an early episode, and it was something about they were tapping the tree for water.
Yeah. And it was they had to compress the wood to squeeze all the water
out.
out. Yeah.
I don't remember when we talked about that, but an early episode.
Was it in our forests episode?
Probably.
Or
probably the forest episode.
Or maybe our geography and the natural world. It could have been that too.
Yeah. It was early. Those are rough. They're very different.
Some good ideas in there. But,
but and that was a big ass tree. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, and we wouldn't blame you though if you struggle to get through those.
So do we. They're twice as long as they needed to be.
Yeah, a little bit.
Anyway, the trope is pretty straightforward, and we could probably just get into some noodles here.
Dig it.
But don't take up the roots because then it'll die. All right, so give me that tease.
Ooh,
what's your tree? And your 3 words can't just be big ass tree.
Well, now I need a minute.
Small ass tree.
Small ass tree.
Small
bipolar world frame.
Okay.
Yeah.
I cannot process what that means, so that'll be interesting.
Little. I went a little bit more sci-fi on this.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I will say, beware the wind.
What?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going first because mine's grounded in reality. So my big ass tree is on a world. This world.
In a world.
My big ass tree is so big.
How big is it?
My big ass tree is so big that it actually covers and cuts through, the roots cut through the earth, the entire center of the planet. And so there is a big ass tree on one end and on one pole of the earth.
Oh,
it's so big that it creates its own ecosystem, basically, right? You know, the tree, the branches provide cloud cover. They gather rain under them. It actually, there is a whole ecosystem in and under this tree, under the canopy of this tree.
Yeah.
Because the tree is so big, it literally cuts through the whole of the planet. There is a tree. There's another tree equally as big on the other side. And it's the same story, same ecosystem.
Okay.
What you discover throughout the course of this story is that these 2 trees are actually the last 2 remaining branches. And throughout the past, the whole world was covered in a forest of these gigantic trees. Maybe there were only 15 or 20 of them.
Yeah.
They're so big. It doesn't matter. The point is there are only 2 left now. And there are only 2 left because, as with any good self-destructive species, the people living on the planet mined them, cut them down for timber, lumber, water resources, hunting. It doesn't matter. What they have learned, though, and where the problems really start to set in, the planting of agriculture and trees that actually stop erosion from occurring in soil. They stop mudslides. They protect the ground from rain from breaking it down. Without these trees, the storms that were sort of building up under the remaining trees started actually ripping the world apart a little bit. So the world in these gigantic chunks started breaking off, almost like mini moons and asteroid belts. So the world itself has these two big trees on the end of it, but the rest of it is pockmarked and looks almost like it's either rotting or like an eaten apple, the image of it, right? And the rest of the world is just sort of floating around.
Yeah.
And so the people who are left living under the tree are figuring out, number one, how do they keep themselves safe from these moving asteroids, right? From the constant erosion of the earth, and how do they rebuild the earth using what's left of the trees?
Okay, very interesting.
I have no names for any of it.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
But it started from the vision of like the two big ass trees, with then like the rest of the world kind of falling apart without them.
Yeah. My first question, I guess, is physics based, so it can just be hand waved.
Yeah.
But the planet is no longer round.
Correct.
It is like an oblong shape, and thus its orbit would go a little bit haywire.
I'm going to leave that up to our audience.
Yeah, or just leave it as it just works.
It just works.
Yeah. Physics is not being affected. It is not now in a different orbit, and like there isn't a different moon process. Just leave it as
it doesn't. Or if you wanted it to get into that level, you could.
Yeah.
Depends on what level of what story you're trying to tell.
Yeah.
And also it depends on how severe you want the situation to be. Obviously a world that's in the shape of an apple core is not great, but also a world that's a bit more pockmarked might be easier to traverse. It's up to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I envision hand waving the physics of it.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's really cool, just that perspective of being. So I'm thinking about, you have the two trees, and now they are long lost brethren.
Right.
Getting to each other is hard.
It's one tree.
Yeah, but
two branches.
Semantics.
Yes.
I'm going to refer to them as two different trees for the sake of simplicity.
Okay.
Maybe. No?
Okay.
All right. Oh, fuck it. I'll call them branches. Michelle Branch. There are two different branches, and they are like long lost brethren. They can't get to each other.
Making your way down tree.
That's a different artist.
That's Michelle Branch.
That's Vanessa Carlson.
Fuck.
Michelle Branch sings. She sings everywhere.
Damn it.
Everywhere. Anyway,
so every tree to me.
They're branches, not trees. Getting like from one branch to the other is so difficult. Now you create this. I'm imagining much like the world being pulled apart while people are like the Berlin Wall being erected.
Okay.
You have people who are visiting the other side whenever all of a sudden there's this separation, and now they can't get to the other branches very easily. So you have you have people struggling to cross that threshold and to get over, get back to to their home or whatever. And however that works, like the Shadow and Bone series did a really cool visualization of that. There's like that sea of shadow that they had to like.
So bummed they canceled that series.
I didn't watch season 2, but I heard it was good.
I watched season 1. It was it
the greatest?
Amazing? No, but it was perfectly entertaining.
It was good,
and Ben Barnes is great. He's creepy as fuck.
Yeah,
I dug it.
It was a great show, but whatever. Netflix gonna Netflix. They won't cancel Arcane because it's fucking great. Season 2.
Another series with a big ass tree.
It is a big ass tree. You're right.
Fuck yeah.
That's good. Yeah. Anyway, but that visual of that crossing, trying to get over that can be really fun. That can create some story tensions.
Yeah.
But I'm imagining, you have the hero sitting there underneath the canopy of the tree, looking out at like this post-apocalyptic wasteland in front of them.
Yeah.
But behind them is this pure idyllic nature of this tree, where it is an oasis,
right,
in a world that's otherwise failing. And
the canopy.
And my my imagination of it is, especially when you're talking about like the asteroids and all this other stuff, of it is like, it's almost like the sky doesn't exist out there.
Yeah.
Like the atmosphere is gone. It is just, you see the blackness of space as you look out of the tree.
That's cool.
Only in the tree do you have like this
Atmosphere.
Yeah, because it's basically created its own gravitational pull. These two branches have their own ecosystems.
They're so massive.
They're so massive. And also just, the magic of them. They have this ecosystem that also is this atmosphere. It's a gravitational pull. They are self-contained, but you can look beyond it and you can see at the edge of it. You can kind of see like the tinges of the darkness. As you get closer to it, you can see just pure space.
Yeah.
And if you walk out there, that's part of why it's so hard to traverse, because it's basically space travel, because you have to go over seemingly nothing, or you go through the roots.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just so treacherous and difficult physically to pull off that it's hard to do. People don't do it as often. But that visual of just staring out into the, much like a noir film, just the city.
This city.
This space.
Planet. Yeah. That's really, really fun. I'm combining your two ideas right now and imagining. I like what you said about having the maybe there's a way, maybe they've over time built a way to safely use the tree's roots as a transit system.
Yeah.
The tree's so big that you can build a tunnel through it, or maybe there's an ant-like creature that they've tamed that can run through it. I don't know. Make it up. I don't care. I don't give a shit. But I now have this vision of a kid, sort of like, again, in Arcane, when they're sitting, when Vi and Jinx or Vi and Powder at that time are sitting on the ledge looking out at the rest of Piltover.
Yeah.
There's a kid sitting on a branch of, let's just call them, let's do two names for the trees. Do we want to just do Alpha and Beta?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a kid sitting on the branch of Alpha.
Oh, no. It should be Alpha and Omega.
Alpha and Omega. Perfect. So there's a kid sitting on an actual branch of Alpha.
Yeah.
Right. He's just sitting there kind of kicking his legs, and he's got a ball. And he drops the ball.
Okay.
And then he just sits there for a while, and he's thinking, and there's some music playing in the background, and he sees, ships going by and people working. And then all of a sudden, a good chunk of time later, the ball comes back. Just shoots right up to him. And he's playing catch with someone else who's sitting on the branch of Omega, and he's tossing it down like through the world. And
that seems
and the gravity
really
is
hard.
Accelerated. Oh, I'm not.
Yeah.
This is purely visual.
Yeah.
But it's just,
it's a cool visual.
It's just accelerating because of the gravitational
the
waves.
gravity would be fucking wild depending on how this is working.
Absolutely.
That is kind of cool.
It's more just, or if you wanted to hand wave it, maybe it's someone, maybe the gravity is just weird and he's at the top of the tree and someone's at the bottom of the tree and they're just still playing catch because the gravity's weird. Maybe he's not going through the entire fucking planet.
Yeah.
But
that'd be really, it's so dangerous because then it'd just be like that ball, if that hits anybody going through, it's
like
just
a penny from the Empire State Building.
Yeah, it's just gonna. Oh shit!
Yeah.
I just lost a leg.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that visual of like a kid doing that, I think that's pretty fun.
Okay, so now let's make it less apocalyptic, and let's make it a little bit more. They have solved for the problem, or they have stabilized the situation. Right. Now they
found neutrality or equilibrium. I mean.
Yeah, equilibrium, exactly. They have the two branches. And then they have made like it is a transit system through the heart, through the roots, with like an actual like train. Mm-hmm. They've developed a full transit system. They just have these two independent cities.
The sap line.
Yeah, that's nice. And they have created a system that just works with these two branches coexisting. And then you create that automatic tension that you have in something like Arcane between the two cities, or what you have in Shadow and Bone, where you have like that separation. And there's like if that transit is broken, like everything's fucked.
Yeah.
So it's
they're dependent on each other for resources, trade,
and everything. And if you break that, then you also have this like irreparable political damage. Mm-hmm. There's a foundation in the show, not in the books. They don't do this in the books, but in the show, they like terrorists attack the space elevator they have that goes all the way up into space, and it just kills like 3 million people because it falls onto like the Coruscant, like,
that's cool.
Hyper populated city planet. And
what do they call those? Megalopolis? There's an official like sci-fi term for it.
Hive cities is kind of one, which I
Yeah.
just learned from Dami Lee, who's a great YouTuber. Everyone should look her up. She's phenomenal, and it's inspired me multiple times in this podcast. But like that created like an impetus for all of the shit. Like the Empire just starts wrecking everybody because you have destroyed this symbol of our civilization, killed a bunch of people, and done like a ton of damage to our commerce. And it's a little bit harder to do when you have the two branches and they're interdependent, but you do create this irreparable damage. And so you can have a story based around somebody trying to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, like the terrorist network that will destroy the sap line because whatever. But that is such like a disastrous consequence or a disastrous outcome. And how do you stop it? You know, that could be
that could be really fun.
Yeah.
Especially if you treated it like I'm trying to think of what a motivation, like a maybe misguided, but nominally good. You know, maybe they want to destroy the sap line because they think the sap line is just making us survivors,
or
not
it's
live. You know,
or that it's hurting the tree,
or it's hurting the tree, right?
That we have to destroy the sap line because we are stunting growth
of the tree.
Yeah, and so these are Druid eco-terrorists, as is tradition here, and they think like
if we stopped building into the tree would heal the earth.
And you know what? Let's make them correct. Let's say at the center of the sap line, some people saw what looks like a bud of a new branch,
right? That
is running into the sap line, and the plan is for the branches to trim the bud or to nip the bud,
right?
Nip it in the bud, so that they can keep the sap line and keep everything moving. And
because they think the sap line is more important for immediate survival,
or they just think, oh, well, it's budding. That's great. It'll bud again. It'll just do it in a way that doesn't require us to get rid of the sap line. We can't rebuild this. So maybe, you know, you create some nuance of they have, you know, we're dependent on this thing. I think it'll bud again, just in a way that doesn't ruin our civilization.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just wait for that to happen.
Yeah.
So you have a bit of both, and you get that complication there.
I like that, and I'm if you build a world like that, fleshing out the sapline a little bit, there's such potential here. Again, I went a little bit more sci-fi, but there's such potential for if these trees are so big, the photosynthesis that would be occurring at that scale, like you could very easily have a solar panel technology analog.
Yeah.
Right?
Or just solar panels.
Or just straight solar panels. But you could do that so that you could build a modern civilization or something that has fully fleshed in. You don't even necessarily need magic.
Yeah.
But you can still have that Clarke's third law. It's so advanced. We've fully mastered the natural technology, the natural biology of this tree.
That it's magic.
That it's now magic. And so we have jetpacks and flying around and laser guns and whatever. It doesn't matter, but it's the world is sort of, if pun intended, blooming from or branching out from that tree, from that idea.
All right. I like it.
So yeah, big ass tree.
Yeah.
Alpha and Omega.
Dope.
What you got? Tell me about your why must I be afeared of yonder winds?
So most big ass trees are big they're wide with all the branches and this ecosystem that it creates.
Yeah.
I went up.
Okay.
I went up, and instead of making about a bunch of branches, I'm making it almost like redwood-esque, but with like a pine situation. Needles. There's not really so much branches. It's that wispy branches at the top that can't like sustain much, but it's covered in these giant needles, pine needles. So, but it's so high up there. Like we're talking skyscraper or higher, and it's like a thick trunk. It's
like
huge.
Like a big Christmas tree.
No.
No.
Because like I'm imagining it could be like a big Christmas tree, but the trunk is going so high up before the needles even start.
I got
and
it.
That's
okay.
and that's important here. So there's this huge thrust out of the ground where it's just bark,
half palm tree, half pine tree.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Got it.
And the wood is impenetrable.
Sure.
It is like the toughest metal possible. So like it's not like you could do anything to damage it, and you can't really climb it because it's so high. and it's dangerous to attempt it. But the needles, this is why I'm saying where the wind, they don't hold on super tightly. They fall, and this tree is as hard as metal. So are these needles. If they fall, they will kill you if you get hit by one. They will destroy your house if it hits one. They are like 5 feet needles, 6 feet. These are like human-sized needles that are falling from this tree.
Yeah.
So when the wind comes, and they're not necessarily heavy, so they can fly pretty decently.
Yeah.
They just have that toughness.
Yeah.
So they're just kind of, and when the wind catches them, they can kind of rip. They have an aerodynamism to them.
Yeah.
So they can go flying. If you're below it and there isn't a ton of wind, they might just be falling just on a whim. But they become, a commodity because they are really strong. They are good weapons. They're very lightweight.
I imagine they're also what houses and buildings are made out of, because they're probably the only thing that can protect people from the falling needles.
Especially people who live nearby. But people would try to move further away, and it might be more of scavenging for these is a very dangerous profession, but a really lucrative one. So because it's also yeah, I'm thinking about that. I think that's a really good point of how much are people using them to construct. And
I would imagine probably a lot.
No, but you'd have to like, you could have some of them, but you have to integrate it with stuff because, like I said, they fly.
No, they fly, and it's also if they fly and it's indestructible.
Not indestructible. They're just really tough.
Strong. If they can fly and they're very tough.
I'd say the wood is nearly indestructible.
I misunderstood. I thought you were saying the whole
I
thing.
didn't clarify. Okay. The wood is nearly indestructible. I'd say the needles are more destructible than that.
Got it.
But they are still very strong. Semi-destructible.
So regardless, I still would imagine that the needles can protect against themselves.
Probably, yeah.
So if you could find a way, Rondeval style, thatched hut roof style, to lash them together and create bundles.
Yeah.
You could very easily.
And I think, and that's where I was getting at with the scavenging thing. These are very valuable. So to do that is a sign of great wealth, great resourcefulness. It is not every building can have a thatched roof of this.
Right.
It's hard to achieve, but it is like the peak of what you want because it is safety. So it might be there's like a central building in every town that has a thatched roof of this. That is if there's a huge storm, this is where you go. It's a shelter. So it would be, but then like people are trying to acquire enough for their own roofs, but you'd be like, okay, we'll have a communal one that if there's a big storm, we can go there.
Right.
But otherwise, everyone's for themselves. But if you're, roaming around or something, and there's all of a sudden a huge gust and some come flying, you got to really be on your toes and be ready to dodge because and they're moving quickly. And so, like, they're not killing people every day.
No.
But
I don't imagine they are.
Because, they're also probably decently easy to dodge in that they're not, I don't know how thick they are, but I'm imagining that when they fly through the air, the way they cut, they make a distinctive, like, whistling sound. Yeah.
Or something so that you can hear them coming.
Yeah.
Which I think is just great vibes.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm a little stuck. And all I'm doing right now is thinking of all of the different things that people would use or try to build out of these things. So you mentioned swords. We mentioned thatched roof. If they fly, right? If they can, fly on currents of air, right? If the wind is strong.
It's just because they're coming from so high up.
But if they are light enough, then
Could you make wings?
Could you? That's what I'm imagining. Like Archangel style wings, or maybe like a boat made out of them. Somehow where you could, if you got enough thrust and acceleration, could you get it up into the air? I can very easily see people trying to work on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. It would be, and I'm going to leave that open-ended in the answer, but I think the idea that it is an inventor's paradise, it is this, it would create lots of opportunity for ingenuity, and it's a great patron for like an RPG of I'm an inventor. I need people to go. I need you to venture into the heart of the tree or somewhere else to acquire a bunch of needles for me.
Yeah.
And potentially like the ecosystem around that is super dangerous too. Maybe there's like crazed animals that are really tough because they've evolved to have to withstand these. And maybe there are animals that live in the tree that giant like rocks, the bird that live in the tree, and this is where they have their nests because it's the only tree big enough for them, and they get territorial if you get anywhere close to the tree, so no one does.
I remember I just had a flashback. There was when the steel in the early generations of Pokemon, when the first steel type Pokemon started being released, one of them was a steel bird, and the story of it was that it was a steel type because it used, I think it might have even used diamonds to make its nest. Yeah. And so it had to develop steel-like feathers. Yeah. And coating to survive its own nest. Yeah. And I thought that, I remember being 12 cool. and being like, that's awesome. That's super cool. Like it makes no sense, but it's super cool.
That's very cool.
But this is sort of like that, where you've got that. You could also, again, I always like to think of ant creepy crawlies up and down the tree.
Well, and as I think about it, I'm like, yeah, a lot of needles that are just falling would fall and just get stuck in the ground right beneath the tree. Mm-hmm. So the base of the tree would just be like a dragon horde's collection of the needles. Yeah. So if you're a party of adventurers who's trying to come collect these, you just need to get to the base of the tree, and then the question is what is defending the tree and what doesn't want you to get close. And it could be the tree itself. It could be a giant steel bird. It could be creepy crawlies that are coming around. It could be some burrowing creature that lives around the tree, or it could be just a giant hazard. I don't know. It could be the tree itself.
In Florida, in Miami, where my folks live, there are a lot of palm trees and a lot of big trees like this. And what climbs these things? There are birds that live in them. Yeah. It's also lizards. Yeah. That are climbing them. So I imagine some sort of like, scaly-hided lizard type thing.
Yeah, a dragon.
But maybe but not a dragon that we normally. You could call them dragons, like more like a worm, like
pseudo dragon. What's it? No,
whatever a wingless dragon is. But yeah, I want them to be distinct from the birds. Because then you could sort of have them be sticky, and that's how they climb. That's how they climb the tree.
And they are all like a giant horde of them that are all around the base. Because they don't climb all the way up. They just climb a little bit up because they're collecting sap. Maybe that's what they feed off of. Right. And then as you approach, it's a whole horde of them turning their eyes to you and then overwhelming you in number.
And maybe they can only go so high because, number one, it gets too cold and they're cold-blooded, so they freeze and they fall off, which happens in winter in Florida. Is like, watch out for falling iguanas. Okay. Because they do freeze and fall off the trees because they die. Oh. It's crazy. Or maybe the tree is so high that the air itself starts to thin out.
I don't think that. Okay. I think it's also just logistically, how high do you want to climb a tree before you're like, I've gone high enough, I've gotten what I need, I will go back down to the ground.
Sure. The other thing, I like the lizards though, because I can see lizards being all like quick and skittery. Yeah. If you've got at the base of the tree, it's almost going to be, I'm imagining almost like in oh my god, what was the Sleeping Beauty, when Maleficent makes the thorns all around the castle? It sort of looks like that, with all of the dead needles that have fallen, but they're all made of the glass or the shiny metal material, but they have lizards kind of climbing all over them and skittering about because they're fast and nimble and they can avoid the points. I have a question though. Okay. When we're talking about pine trees and we're seeing, trees like this that exist in our world, it's often, a lot of the times, the needles that are falling are dead. Yeah. Are these needles dead? And if so, how are they different when they're alive? Are they bendy? Are they flexible? Like,
I don't know. Uh-huh. Yeah. I think there's inherently... Well, I guess we've been discussing it in both flexible and inflexible terms. Mm.
And I'd imagine them more rigid and...
Yeah, it was
Spear
more
link.
the thatched part.
Mm.
That's where it becomes difficult. You'd have to treat them more like logs otherwise.
Mm.
And maybe that is more. It's like
Sure.
where it's like a log where it is part of a tree. So these needles are rigid even after they're off the tree.
Sure.
I think that would probably just make the most sense from a consistency perspective. Making them flexible would be difficult.
Sure.
And then they are a little bit less like the needles you'd find on a tree in the real world because those are flexible.
Yeah. But no, it was just a thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
Yeah. I think that's yeah, I like that.
Cool. Yeah. Well, that's that one. Do we want to move on to our lighting round here?
Speed round.
Go.
So I'm still sort of stuck. I was inspired by our idea of the giant moving ent that had a big city on it from our forests episode.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to recreate that.
Okay.
So this is inspired by it. Very similarly, a gigantic tree, but it is a gigantic willow tree that is not rigid. It bends and flows.
Yeah.
So if you are within a radius of the height of the tree, you got to be careful when it gets windy and stormy because the tree is it's not going to break. It's not going to fall over on you, but it will bend regularly. So it's a lot of dodging and ducking and a hard place to live.
The Whomping Willow. A bit.
A little bit, yeah. But not conscious, not alive.
Yeah.
Just accidentally a whomping willow.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it. Just very simple, a gigantic ass willow tree.
Okay.
That
cool.
bends in the winds.
Yeah. My speed round is also not particularly complex. I liked the idea of the traditional big ass tree, but then put it like on a cliff on the coast.
Okay.
And have it where the roots are exposed because the cliff is like, there's like a big opening in that cliff there. And there's like a whole city built in the roots that are going down to the water on the coast. So you can see the tree up top, but then it's just like a town or a city built into the roots and like around this cliff because it's giving extra something there, extra support. And it's so immovable because it's this magic big ass tree. And then like down to the water, you have like a harbor.
High five.
Okay.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah. So that's that idea.
That's very cool.
That was gonna be my full idea, but I was stuck. I was like, no, I don't think there's a lot of exploration in that. I think that one's just done. Yeah. So I was just like, we'll just put it in speed round.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, that's our speed round. Let's figure out what stuck for us.
What stuck for you, Kyle? What stuck to your pasta bowl?
I think I really like the visual of the sap line. I think it's cool, and I think and I love the idea of the bud of a new branch as a starting point for a story.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
But
That's very good.
It really, because it's that visual of the roots meeting in the middle of the branches. I think that's a really cool nexus to work from. Yeah. And then I like what we have for an idea of what comes after that.
Yeah. So it's a great story beat too.
Yeah. What's like for you?
I really like thinking. I'm still thinking of all the myriad of uses of these
needles.
I'm like it's like a porcupine society in my head, right? It's like a
Why
diamond
not?
porcupine society, man. I just think it's so cool. Like I'm imagining rondavals made out of. I know we had just said that they maybe are.
What's a rondaval?
A rondaval is in sub-Saharan Africa. It's the type of traditional hut.
Okay.
That's round in shape.
I
And
know the way you're talking
it
about.
comes
I just know it's
into
called
a
a
cone
rondaval.
pit. Yeah, no, it's called a rondaval. I'm basically imagining a rondaval made of clear diamond-like needles. I'm imagining. I am thinking of people.
Just to be
flying
clear,
around.
in my example, I wasn't thinking they were diamond and clear, but you are.
I am. I don't know why. That's just where they are.
That seems horrifying because then you can't see them.
No, but that's why you can hear them.
That actually might be cooler.
Yes.
All
I
right.
know.
Yeah.
But then I also like you've got people flying around on archangel like wings. You've maybe got a couple of boats made out of these things, or maybe they're skiing. Oh, they're skiing in the air on them. Oh. That's awesome. But then you get farther out away from the trees, and maybe there's like a warlord in a village, and he's a warlord or she's a warlord because they have a sword made out of a needle and no one can stop them from using it. Like it's just,
I was
it's
thinking
so, or like their fortress is protected by a wall of these things. It's just so cool.
I'm thinking very much about the sword that is out of the clear diamond-like needle that people really can't see, and or just like a dagger.
Yeah,
it's very easy to be an assassin if you can have a weapon that no one can see.
Yep.
Because then you can just sneak up behind people, just stab them. They cry out in pain, and you just like, what?
I didn't do anything.
And no one can, and especially because you can just easily kind of like hide it in your hand.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's a little bit harder to hide than that, but yeah, that's a good note that I wish we had clarified when we were talking about it. But anyway, well, that's what stuck for us.
Let us know what stuck for you.
Emails in the show notes.
Thanks for listening.
Goodbye.
High five.